Hello again, welcome to our weekly chat, Sheffield Live TV on a Thursday. There's a couple of guys I know very well. One of them from, well, I'm going to say both of them actually, from way back. One of them is a striker best described as bustling. We'll check whether he agrees with that or not in a little while. I've dealt with him a lot of times at Sheffield Wednesday. It was always a pleasure to talk to. Really perky character. He is Gordon Watson. Hello, Gordon. How are you?
I'd say morning, Al, but that'd probably throw you a little bit, wouldn't it?
Well, it would, yeah. You're giving away the show's secret straight away. We try and pretend to be live, but it is the morning. We're recording this on a Wednesday afternoon, our time, but it's in the morning of Wednesday, your time, because you are where?
I'm in Costa Rica, and it's 7 o'clock in the morning here. So I've got up especially early just for you.
Ask a question and get an obvious answer. Yeah, he's obviously in Costa Rica. James Mason, who I know very, very well. Of course, we're colleagues from the press box. Both works on Final Score at one time. And he now, for his sins, I don't know if that's the right way of putting it, is the chief executive of Welcome to Yorkshire. Welcome to South Yorkshire on this occasion, James.
Delighted to be in South Yorkshire with you, Alan. I can't beat Gordon's title of bustling. Never been described as that. And Costa Rica, I imagine it's a little bit sunnier than it is here in West Yorkshire, but delighted to be on with you both.
Yeah. Is it sunnier than West Yorkshire? It's very gloomy here at the moment in both South and West Yorkshire, Gordon.
Yeah, it's about 80 degrees at the moment at 7 o'clock in the morning, but this afternoon I'll get my English weather because we're moving into the storm and rainy season till October. So that's when I like to sit out on the balcony with my flip-flops when it's absolutely pouring down.
Okay, right. There's plenty to discuss with you from your football career, which of course embraced Sheffield Wednesday and Bradford City as well, which is where you know James. That's where the two of you, because James, you were former chief operating officer at Valley Parade, and Gordon was a player there later in his career. Yeah,
I may as well start. We tried to build up a network of all our former players when I was at Bradford City, and of course Gordon is a familiar face down at Valley Parade, but also one of the fans' firm favourites. Wasn't there for a long time, but was there for a really pivotal time. Obviously, the progression up the leagues. Obviously, suffered a terrible career-ending injury, I suppose, to some extent, Flash, when he was with us. And I'd like to think the club supported him through that. But most importantly, Gordon's always been there when we've needed him to come back to speak in the lounges. We even had the Bantams Fly South event a couple of years ago where we went down to London and Flash was there. And what fans love about Gordon is whether he was playing for the team, whether he was speaking on behalf of the club, what you see is what you get, 100% passion, energy, and that's probably why in his role now as an expert within the sort of sports betting field is you get real insight, and that's what fans want, and that's why he's a real Bantams legend, along with all the other clubs, including Sheffield Wednesday, as you mentioned.
Yeah, tell us about that role now, Gordon, because you've worked as a pundit. In fact, we've spoken to each other on the same shows more than once, and James alluded to there a betting guru.
Yeah, well, basically, I'm like poacher turned gamekeeper now because I'm on the presenting side and I get every single type of sport. I mean, obviously, I do La Liga, I'm doing Bundesliga today, Premier League and Serie A next week, and then there's snooker, there's golf, and all the American sports, which obviously I love, are close to my heart. Obviously the NFL, MLB, I'm not too clever on, but so my role is that I present shows to actually experts who make a living out of betting in them sort of very, very tight fields, and then I get an expert alongside as well, so we get both of it short and sharp, maybe up to maybe 45-50 minutes. We cover every game, or we cover every angle, and I love it because I'm talking sport every single day. Like I'm on 7 o'clock in the morning, I'm with you now. I think at 9 o'clock this morning I'm doing the Belmont Stakes, and then at like 10:15 I'll be doing the Bundesliga. And then I'm doing the Korean and Taiwanese baseball for tomorrow at about 3 o'clock Eastern time. So yes, sport all the way. It's a great gig.
Well, I get the football expertise, but how much homework have you had to put into baseball, for instance, and other sports?
Rounders. I don't really get involved in the rounders, to be honest. That's not for me. I mean, but NFL was obviously we all grew up with NFL. I love NFL. NFL would probably be up there with my soccer expertise because I've got over 35 years of history of that. So the big one I really had to work on was probably the college basketball last year. When you got over 100 games a day for maybe up to 90 to 100 days, you learn on the ground really quickly, and by the end of it, I was very, very comfortable. But remember, I'm a presenter, Al. I mean, you never played football, but you can talk like you played.
I don't know how to answer that. I think, James, you and I ought to join forces against Mr. Watson on that. He's got a point. So many footballers have become good presenters and also good writers as well. I was talking to Neil Collins just recently. He's a brilliant writer. His blogs frighten me to death because, it could put me out of business eventually. This is true, though, James, isn't it? There was a resistance for many years from us old tykes of the press box, to incomers, who played the game, but what do they know about journalism and reporting? But one or two are very good, aren't they? We have to admit, kind of thing.
Yeah, no, and listen, a sports person's lifespan is what? It can be a couple of years if it's injury or if their face doesn't fit, or it can be 10, 15, 20, 30 years if they're really lucky. And the natural progression for many now is to go into the sports media because sports broadcasters want that expertise. And as an analyst, they're best placed to do that. As an anchor person, a presenter, not necessarily. You would like to think that they've got the skills. Gordon clearly has. And then if you look at Gary Lineker, the way his career's developed, and the likes of Gary Neville, etc., some of them can transcend in from analyst to presenter. Some can't. But you mentioned a couple of people then. But if you think about Matthew Said, was a table tennis player, a high level table tennis player. Now an excellent writer, Michael Atherton. So I don't think anyone minds any person moving into another sphere as long as they have the credentials. And of course, being a professional sports person helps. But as long as they've got the journalistic flair, they're prepared to do the hard yards. I don't have an issue at all. The only problem is that Gordon's better than me and you at this, so that's why I've had to move into another sphere. I'll have to keep moving. If you want to run a tourism agency for Costa Rica, Gordon, I'm out. That's me cashing in the chips. I'm done.
Well, I agree with you that good anchor people are few and far between. That is a difference. And if you're good at that, Gordon, you've sold me on it that you are good at it. Full marks.
It's an easy job. It's an easy job, though, El, because I have a knowledge and understanding of sport in general, and then obviously you define it. But all I'm doing, my job's easy because all I'm doing is teeing up from that knowledge to an expert. So for me, and then obviously I can just throw a little bit in and just basically cut the corners so that we get to the real content that people want to listen to.
Excellent. Well, we hope to make this show as entertaining as some of yours, which means we're going to come on to some of the events of your Sheffield Wednesday and Bradford City career in due course. But just to come right up to date with both of you. First of all, James, last time we saw each other face to face, until all communication was on the Zoom app, or nearly all, was at a Yorkshire managers lunch back in December when you were celebrating this wonderful new job that you got as chief executive of Welcome to Yorkshire. It seemed a dream job at the time. And I don't know if you feel sort of personally almost slighted by coronavirus. I mean that tongue in cheek because people have been really devastated by it in so many ways. But, suddenly coronavirus, and it's poison chalice, isn't it, almost for you?
Well, let's put it this way. It certainly wasn't on the job description when I signed up for it. World pandemic, and Welcome to Yorkshire for anyone watching that isn't aware of who we are or what we are. We're the marketing agency for Yorkshire. So our role is to make sure that Yorkshire as an entity, our 5.5 million people, our coastline, our national parks, our cities, our art galleries, every particular reason that you would come to Yorkshire as a tourist, and now particularly TV tourism as well, all across the world that you know about Yorkshire. Just as if you were to go to Costa Rica, they'll have a tourism board, or if you go to Florida, we visit Florida, visit Dubai. Our job is to promote Yorkshire as a place to visit, live, work and study. International students, you name it. However, I took the role on because I did see some similarities with a football club. So I've been at Bradford City for 4 years. It's an emotional product, is Yorkshire. So Gordon's not from Yorkshire, but he's played and lived in Yorkshire, so he understands what it means. We're very proud. We tell it as it is. Alan, you and I are from Yorkshire, so we've got that long historical link to it. But actually, anyone who's ever come into contact with the region, does fall in love with it. And our job is now to tap into that big word, diaspora of Yorkshire across the world. However, just like a football club not being able to put its product on the pitch, i.e. football matches, we can't welcome tourists to Yorkshire at the moment. You know, our slogan is welcome to Yorkshire. It's there behind me. But at the moment we're saying, not yet, don't come yet, it's not safe. So in that respect, it's been very, very difficult, if not impossible, to try and keep the kettle boiling that we've got York Minster and that we've got 2 national parks and that we've got Bolton Abbey and Saltaire and the David Hockney Museum in Bradford. Yet we're saying don't come. So it's been a real challenge and we don't know when this is going to end, but I do like a challenge. Bradford City was a challenge. All my previous roles have been challenges. So this is just another challenge and I've got to try and keep Yorkshire relevant across the world, which is why doing media programs, doing any bit of publicity we can is important because it's a massive industry. Forget who I am and forget my role. A £9 billion economy. That's how big it is. We employ best part of 250,000 people in the industry, and that's from football clubs to rugby clubs to theatres, art galleries, hotels. It's a massive industry that if it was to go tomorrow, we'd all be worse off.
Yeah, indeed. To use a football analogy for you, James, you've got a tremendous squad to deal with there and to manage.
They're all just on the bench, injured.
Once everybody's fit. Yeah, you really have. Gordon's got Costa Rica. We've got Scarbados. I can appreciate that. I'm actually an adopted Yorkshireman because I was actually born not far from where Gordon first played his football, which was at Charlton Athletic. And that enables me to sort of come up to date. We're going to talk about Sheffield United later because they can be a boost to James. Sheffield United, when football returns, a wonderful chance of going into Europe. But let's just talk about Charlton and an event that really is quite significant as we look to football to restart. Lyle Taylor refusing to play for the Addicts for the rest of the season, in which Charlton are struggling. He's their top scorer, their star player. And this is relevant to Sheffield Wednesday, which I'll come on again in a minute. First of all, Gordon, do you understand the stance that Lyle Taylor has taken, or do you think it's a wrong one?
I think you've got to look at it from both sides. I often sit on the fence, Al, but I mean, he's looking after himself and thinking that I'm only going to get this move. I don't think he's as good as he thinks he is. So if he's got an opportunity to then go and get a good move, then he's probably going to clutch it with both hands, you know. But no, I think the loyalty towards the club of actually trying to help them stay in championship status, then I think that there could be something put in place where if he gets injured and his potential move, but this is a potential move. Nothing's been signed. So we know what football's like. It's a lot of poker going on. There may not even be anyone there, and they're actually using it as leverage against Charlton to say, well, we still want you or we will pay you. Maybe there's something in place where you play for us for the remaining games, and if you get injured and your move is then damaged and you're not able to do it, then we can come to some compromise. But for me, I think it's probably club. You've got to look at it from both sides, but I would say that I would expect him to play for the club and help them get into the championship, stay in the championship.
Do you think he'll bow down and reverse that?
I don't think he will. I think he should, Al.
Good. Right.
And I don't see it as bowing down, really. I see him as doing the job that he's paid for. His contract is to play for Charlton. I understand, obviously, listen, we're looking at times that are unprecedented. So if they're unprecedented, then you've got to bend a little bit. And also, there might be someone else in his ear. So because an agent's going to get paid at the end of this as well, you know. So if an agent then thinks, well, hang on a minute, I've got a payday coming up with Lyle Taylor. I don't want to lose out on that because everybody in this world, none of them have been paid really for the last 3 or 4 months. So if they've got like a nice check going to be coming in July or August, they're going to need that.
Yeah, well, I suppose the players have been paid for not doing anything, or they've had to keep themselves fit, but they haven't had to go on.
And they've lost. I mean, listen, when everyone's got the old world's smallest violin out for the players' salaries, but a lot of them have been obviously taking a drop, you know. Yeah,
That's true. Although his contract will be out at the end of June, so he's, if he takes a short-term one and he has got a move lined up, he's taking a risk. That's the other side of it. James, have you got any thoughts on that situation and whether it'll apply across the board to other players, you think?
Yeah, I caught the end of an interview with Lee Bowyer, his manager, last week when they were discussing this, because I think there's 2 or 3 players at Charlton, aren't there, that made the same decision. Lyle obviously being one of them. And in fact, I came into contact with Lyle and his people when I was at Bradford City. He was certainly a striker, certainly at League One level. A real prospect. I've got to agree with Gordon. How high he can go in his career remains to be seen. But at this moment in time, clubs and players want certainty. Loyalty is going to be a massive play. But at the same time, money always talks. As Gordon mentioned, one of my issues when I was in the football game was, as much as we got on with agents and we needed to, agents only get paid when their players move. So 3-year contracts are great for the moment they sign them, but then a year and a half in, guess what? They're nudging the player to say, guess what? X is interested in you. You should be paid more than what you're paid at the moment, only because they don't earn when a player's happy and settled, and I'm that's not a blanket approach, by the way. There are some really good agents out there, but it's like an estate agent. You want people to move houses so that you can earn money. If everyone's on 3, 4, 5-year contracts, the market's stagnant. However, I would favour something concrete at this moment in time. I think we're going to have an unemployment pandemic across the UK anyway, so footballers have probably got to realise more than ever. And I speak to a lot of them from my Bradford days, whether it's Tony McMahon or Billy Clark or Colin Doyle, that are coming into, the probably the back end of their career, and it's going to be really tough. I think getting paid £500, the hundreds in League Two is going to be the norm going forward. It's not going to be thousands and thousands of pounds. And I think the average for a League Two player up until recently was about £2,000 a week, 1,500, £2,000 a week. These days are gone, and players are going to have to probably take what they're going to have to get. Tough one.
Reality check coming. But just to apply the Lyle Taylor situation to Sheffield Wednesday, where we don't know specifics of what players are going to do, but they are facing a potential crisis here because they go into a logjam of fixtures in July. Obviously, dependent on whether they get points docked or not from the Football League, they could be fighting to stay up. And they're going to be down to about, as things stand, they've only got 13 players on contract for going into July. 8 players are out of contract. Jones, Fox, Sam Hutchinson, Ati Nuhu, Stephen Fletcher, he's been offered a new deal, as has Morgan Fox, Winnall Forestieri. Now, a lot could hinge on how those players react, because the grapevine suggests that quite a few of those players are earmarked for being released. So how do you think that one's going to play out, Gordon?
I think they've been given an extra chance, really, them players, because they would obviously offer to play for Sheffield Wednesday for an extra month to be in the shop window, because half of them players that you mentioned have had an absolute gravy train ride for the last 2-3 years. So for me, that the wages are all on, very few clubs will be coming in for them players on the same structure. So they've got to say, okay, we'll sign a month contract with you. We will play. Because listen, when they look around and playing in S6, 99, if not 100% of every one of them names will never get to play a club like Sheffield Wednesday again. So I would say that I would try for that next month to either try and turn the manager's head and say, because it's been done before, they were going to be released, but no, we maybe made a mistake, or the reality check, as you mentioned, it might just be on, I'm so lucky to be here. Because the way that club's been run for the last 5-7 years is nothing short of scandalous.
Yeah, I mean, you're talking about the decline in the club on the field of play compared to how much money is going out in wages. Very highly paid.
I'm talking about the whole thing, Al. I'm talking about the whole thing. The whole place has been mismanaged from top to bottom. I mean, listen, football is a strange world where in the business side of football, it's like no other business, because someone can go and waste £100 million and they'll still be sitting in their job and they'll still be doing that same job. You do that to an nth degree in any other walk of life, and you are held accountable, and you have gone. And we talk about estate agents, then I've gone on record before, and Sheffield Wednesday have paid mansion prices for bungalows. And now and then it proves it, because the players that you've just mentioned that are all going to be released, none of them are going to get anywhere near a club like Sheffield Wednesday.
Mansion prices for bungalows is a memorable phrase. He has got that journalistic ability in him there, James Mason, hasn't he?
Yeah, I think I think we're going to be going for Gordon for our headlines and our puns going forward, aren't we, Alan?
I think we are. But I mean, he makes a serious point, though, because Sheffield Wednesday shouldn't be as low in the table as they are, or in the free fall that they were in. But probably the squad has needed a shake-up long before now. And this is where the dilemma comes in, Gordon, because yes, those players owe Sheffield Wednesday something. They owe themselves something. Get themselves in the shop window, or persuade Gary Monk or another manager that they deserve another contract there. That is one way of looking at it. Another way of looking at it is, well, they might think, I'm out of contract. This club isn't going to give me a deal. I don't owe them anything. So I don't want to get injured in the next few weeks. I know which way you're thinking.
Well, I'm thinking they're going to be lucky to get a club, some of them. And obviously, James just mentioned about the pandemic and then the economic crisis. But can we just flick over to the other side of Sheffield, by the way? Because if you put all them names on the squad from Sheffield Wednesday and then put all the names on the squad from Sheffield United, the Wednesday are all well-known names that you can associate with straight away. And yet on the other side of the fence, you've got names that no one knew unless you was a United fan. And yet, look at what they've produced. Look at the recruitment. Look at the spine of the football club, from manager right the way down. And I tell you what it is, it's a team, it's a togetherness, and that's why they're getting their results. And I actually firmly believe that United's success should be the catalyst for Wednesday to pull their fingers out.
Pull their fingers out. Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. And they've been through a few managers as well. I don't know whether you know Gary Monk.
He was at Southampton.
Pardon? Yeah, Southampton. Yeah, of course you do. Of course you do. And it strikes me he's picking up the tab for things that have gone before and hasn't had an opportunity yet to do the job. And let's hope he gets to the point where he can.
No, it's like giving a chef bad ingredients and then asking them to put on a decent meal. It can't be done. It can't be done. And yet, there's the things that are so stable at Sheffield are the fans, the fan base. The club is massive. And people always throw it out, oh, it's a massive club. It's beyond massive, Al. I mean, you obviously had some of your best years in journalism on the back of both Sheffield Wednesday and Sheffield United. And that city erupts when they're both doing well, and if one's not, then you have to rise. The biggest battle is on the streets with red and white and blue and white, and you have to raise your game.
Yeah, Gordon, as ever, shooting from the hip. I had some of my best interviews from you. When you were at Hillsborough, you were always very opinionated. People didn't necessarily always agree with it, but you always had things to say.
They were wrong.
What your opinion?
He's not changing, is he? Not changing his stance.
No, he's not. He's not.
Alan, just can I come in on a point there that Flash mentioned? And actually, while we're talking about Lyle Taylor as an asset to Charlton Athletic or not, this does give Gary Monk and any manager and any chief executive and owner the chance to recalibrate. So Gordon mentioned the way that Chris Wilder has built a team there, and the whole club from top to bottom, whether it's Stephen Bettis at the top, the ownership, or even Kev, who's running the media department, solid, good people, that would do a job anywhere across the leagues. But I suppose the point is, it gives Gary Monk at Sheffield Wednesday the chance to go, listen, there's some players I'd love to keep, but market conditions might mean that I can't. But also it means I can get rid of X, Y, and Z on a lot of money that I wouldn't have not chosen. And we're seeing that across the country now, where managers are going, okay, it was decided yesterday with League One and League Two, but there'll be some managers going, okay, I can get rid of X, Y, and Z that were probably taking up 200, 300, 400,000 pound of my budget that I would never have chosen, and almost go, let's use this crisis, let's use this pandemic. Never waste a good crisis, by the way, if you're in management, and going, right, okay, clean slate. And actually, I think there'll be the teams and the clubs that will do well are the ones that have got the best scouting policy now, and the managers and the chief execs that are prepared to go, you're playing for this club if it's Sheffield Wednesday because this is the size of club that you're coming to, not the wage packet at the bottom line. It's got to be almost going back in time to performance-related pay to a point, but players want to go to the biggest, best clubs around, not necessarily clubs that are paying the most just because they've got a wealthy owner. And I think that recalibration eventually when it happens can only be good for the game. It really can.
Well said, James. We've come to the end of part one, but in part two, hope you guys can stick around. I want to talk a lot more about Sheffield United, Gordon's view of Chris Wilder and the job he's done there, and James, how much good the Blades can do for the ailing tourist industry in Yorkshire and for your job at Welcome to Yorkshire. James Craig will join us too with a roundup. Do rejoin us in just a couple of minutes. We'll see you then.